All of these procedures I'm going to teach you pertain to online students, but also students who are in person too. So the first thing that I'm going to teach you, and I may have already taught you this in person as well, but this is a refresher, is how to deal with your palette at the end of the day. Now, ideally, you want to put small amounts of paint so you don't have a large amount at the end of your painting session. But you're going to go ahead and blend that remaining paint around. So you're not going to throw it away. You're just going to blend it onto your palette, and ideally you would mix it all together. And this accomplishes two things. It creates a surface that is smooth so that there are no bumps or ridges on it, so that when you go to paint on it next time and put all those colors on there and you go to mix, there's no bumps or weird indents that you're hitting every single time you mix. The other purpose it serves is you want to create a background that's kind of a neutral background, so it's not necessarily one color, it's a mix of all colors. And that makes it easier to see if your colors are correct, the colors are true. You do want to leave that palette in a safe place while it's drying. You don't want to have it be in a place where somebody might accidentally put something on top of it or put their hand in it. It takes about 10 to 20 minutes to dry a palette fully out, so put it in a safe spot where it's not going to cause any havoc. You may be using a palette knife at home, or you're using one when you're in person in the classroom. But here is a couple ways to clean these plastic knives off. You can see I'm just taking a paper towel and pinching it with the paper towel and wiping it down. So sometimes the paint has been sitting there for a while and it's dried off. And this is actually really fun to do, but you can peel it off. If it's thick enough, you can kind of use your fingernails, dig in. If that's not working, you can always take a little X-Acto knife blade. So that's one of those precision X-Acto knives there. And again, all of these are really fun to do because then you can bring that knife back to its original state, essentially, and you'll have a clean palette knife next time you work. If you haven't got a palette knife, I do really recommend them for blending. You will save your brush hairs if you use a knife as opposed to your brush hairs, because think about it, you're bending those brush hairs every time you mix. And a palette knife can take that and it doesn't bother the knife at all. It doesn't damage it in the least. So yeah, they're very easy to clean. You can just pick them off, or again, take a blade to them and scratch them off if you're at home to get it to clean up. This really is the most important lesson I can teach you, and that is to take good care of your brushes. Now, I've made mistakes before, and I've had to learn from them, but the one thing you want to always do is make sure you wash and soap and rinse your brushes. This is an up close of me rinsing the brushes. I just want to show you what I do. I'm basically pinching at the metal part, and then I move my fingers up towards the tip of the brush. So I'm kind of rolling the brush hairs in between my fingers, my thumb finger and my pointer finger, my index. And that helps to push out all the paint that's trapped in that metal area, the ferrule, and it pushes it to the front, and then it can be rinsed clean. So again, this is just the rinsing part. Pretty soon we're going to do the soaping part. And you're going to see the rinse is not good enough to clean your brushes. If you leave it at that and let them dry, they're going to become crusty. So here's why we need a bar of soap. And in the classroom, I provide Ivory soap, but really if you're at home, you can use any type of bar soap. I like the white bar soap to clean my brushes. And Ivory soap is so cheap. So that's what we're going to use. I rinse my brushes off again, get them a little bit wet, and then I have my bar up and I kind of let it, the water stream down there. And when I'm kind of rubbing the brushes on there, I'm very careful not to push the brush hairs the wrong way. So you want to stay with the direction, and I'm not putting so much pressure in there that I'm angling the brush hairs too much. Here's an up close, and you can see there's already kind of some pink suds on here, but the more I do that back and forth kind of zigzagging on that bar of soap, the more pigment, the more paint you can see on that bar of soap. So you eventually want that to kind of run clear. If I were to run it under the tap water, I'd run that water until it runs clear. Here's my second brush that I'm cleaning. And same thing, I'm kind of going back and forth in a zigzag pattern. I'm careful not to push the brush hairs forward because I don't want to bend those hairs the wrong way. And now it's time to rinse off the brushes. So I want to make sure that there's no soap on there too. And by the way, I am using only cold water on the brush hairs. If you use warm water, it'll eventually start to damage your brush hairs too. So I always make sure I'm using cold water on the brush. And while I'm rinsing too, I forgot to mention this, I'm also kind of pinching the ferrule, which is the metal part of the brush, and making sure there's no like buildup on there too. I want to keep that area nice and clean. Lastly, I want to take the brushes and I want to pinch them. So starting at the metal part, the ferrule, I'm pinching it towards the tip, and I'm reshaping the brushes back into their original intended shape. So these are flat brushes. That's the type of brush they are. So I'm pinching them into that flat shape, and I'm going to let them dry like that. So next time I go to use them, they should look like they're in that formation. And then when I go to put them away, it's really important that they are either sideways or pointed down with the brushes down. It's not a good thing to keep the brushes pointed up because it makes the brush, it damages the brushes on their inside. So if you put them sideways, it's perfect. This is going to feel weird, but this is the correct position for holding your brush. There's really two positions, and they're both at the back of the handle. And that's so that you can make more gestural, energetic strokes, and it's also to get your eyes farther back from what you're working on. So you're not 6 inches away from your painting, you're more like 1.5 feet away from what you're painting. And that's important in painting because you need to be able to see if it's working from afar as well as up close. So again, far back on that brush handle.